donation. The extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed, all been ruined at the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that, just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things. And I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another live edition of the Story behind the story. I'm your host, Dr. A. Truott, coming to you live 2x2, 4x4, 6x6 from the Wasatch Front in northern Utah. I'm trying to see, I don't believe we have a connection with our wonderful compadres or compatriots in the Philippine Islands, where they may be sleeping in today. It's 10 o'clock in Saturday morning over there in the Philippine Islands, but that's okay. We'll simulcast away. My goodness, a hot topic tonight, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we try to bring you the cutting edge in thought-provoking topics. Yes, indeed. Thanks again to our executive producer, Dom, who brought this to my attention. I'd heard of this group a little bit. I hadn't really delved into it. Another listener actually had told me about them. This is, I'm talking about a group called the American Intelligence Media, or AIM, taking aim. They've got what I believe is a really blockbuster article that's just recently posted, actually today on the 14th. My goodness, 14th of June. Betsy and Thomas, the American Intelligence Media, their website is simply AIM, AIM, American Intelligence Media. AIM for the number 4 truth.org. AIM for truth.org. Their YouTube channel is simply American Intelligence Media. I will wager, however, if you or anybody's listening wanted to take me up on this bet, maybe, I will wager that because of the content of this posting today, that I believe should go and will go viral, I submit that they won't last long on YouTube channel before they're completely banned. Oh my goodness, we'll see. Well, Betsy and Thomas, thank you so much for this article. Thank you, Dom, for this. I'm not sure. Do we have anybody connecting with us? We have, of course, the Goldwater is auditing this and recording it for future playback over their network. So again, thank you for that very much. Thank you, Goldwater folks. And oh my goodness, this is a very, very important show tonight. I would love to have the comments. This is right up the alley for Philip and Kevin Major Burdock. I'm sure they'll be listening in and wanting to do their feedback in. But if they do come on, we'll bring them on. So let's just jump right into this, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try and set the table here as best I can. As you know, the story behind the story has been very active in trying our best to expose the machinations of the NSA, specifically the illegal eavesdropping of telecommunications and internet postings in the name of national security, right? They have the capabilities at the Data Collection Center in Bluffdale, Utah, to sift through every bit of your telecommunications. Now, you say, well, I've heard the arguments. Some people say, well, that's necessary in this age of crazy cyber stalking and hacking, and we got to keep America secure. After all, we were attacked on September 11th, 2001 by some crazy people. So you say this is all part of the burgeoning cybersecurity, homeland security, whatever. And then we see as we get more and more wired as a society, we see the popularity of Facebook and other social media accounts such as such as Twitter, etc. And people say, well, it's harmless. It doesn't matter if I go onto Facebook and post pictures of my hunting or fishing trip, or pictures of my family, my children, my grandchildren, my kids, what they're doing. It's totally harmless. It's just a way to connect with friends and families and so forth and so on. Well, that's exactly what the powers that be would want you to believe, that it's totally harmless. Because let's face it, the vast majority of people that tie into Facebook and use that medium are doing so, they believe, just to be, they're harmless. They're not terrorists. Okay, so why is this an issue? Why is the CIA / NSA / deep states / NSA, okay, why do they want to control through logarithms and vast computer modules that are, we believe, and we are very strongly of the opinion that we have quantum computers, not just super powerful Cray computers, but quantum computers, interdimensional in nature, actually processing this data through the NSA's data collection center. How do we know for sure? Well, how can we know for sure? Cannot. Because you see, it's beyond top secret. Even congressmen and women, this is what gets me. I mean, you have senators, the state senators from Utah. Would they ever go in there and demand to be shown? They wouldn't. But if they did, they would be denied. They would be told, sorry, this is not for your eyes only. I would dare say that much of the inside deep state controllers, whether it's even Secretary of State Pompeo, defense, do they even have ability to access the NSA? Good question. I don't know. I just know that members of Congress aren't allowed. You see, the NSA is simply above the law. So why is it important to understand this story that I'm going to share with you tonight, that comes from the American intelligence media, the blockbuster insider report on Mr. Mark Zuckerberg and what Facebook is really all about. This is very important as you understand that Facebook was developed by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and was absolutely designed as a military weapon. What? Military? Yeah. You see, it's about garbage in, garbage out. They have to understand what social norms are. They didn't need to know what was driving America's interests, likes and dislikes. Like us on Facebook. You see, push the little thumbs up. We're liked. So they calculate through their logarithms the likes and dislikes. And so they get the information that they need to say how we can manipulate public opinion. It's very, very, very much a mind control and social engineering tool. See, now get that in your mind first of all. First and foremost, to understand why this report is so very important and so very valuable. Then I'm going to tie into, again, who is behind this and why. Is it just, who is the deep state, you see? I want to just jump right in and before we're going to play this letter. This letter is on YouTube. Becky with AIM is reading it there on a YouTube page. She does a very good job reading it. We're going to play the audio in a few minutes. Before we do that, I'm going to turn to some older articles that will tie in this. You can understand what's really going on, especially in light of what's happening as we speak now in the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, look at your world map, ladies and gentlemen. The Straits of Hormuz, American aircraft carrier group is there. Why? Well, because Israel is targeting Iran. See, when you look at President Trump's speech to the AIPAC as he was candidate Trump, he said some very, very important things the people in the know need to listen to. He basically said that the Iran deal that was inked by Obama's team was a bad deal. He would get us out of that deal. And he had some very harsh words that he basically promised that Israel would be taken out as a threat to Israel. And that got a standing ovation. I just shook my head as I heard him say that. I says, do you understand if you attack Iran, you're basically attacking China and Russia? You see, provocation, false flag. If you might have missed this in the headlines, folks. 2 neutral country tankers were attacked yesterday in the Straits of Hormuz there. So I understand today they're still burning out of control, like black smoke going up into the upper atmosphere. And the price of crude oil jumped yesterday 4%. It's up again today because there's so much saber rattling going on. We have Pompeo declaring that he has, quote, intelligence videos, CIA intelligence videos showing Iranians trying to hide the evidence of magnetic mines that attached to these tankers and blew them up. Excuse me, what should be obvious, at least to me, is why would Iran want to do such a thing? Why would they want to provocate something like that where they know they get royalties for international tankers passing through their controlled Straits of Hormuz? Why would they want to blow that up and damage that? What's possible benefit do they have for precipitating attacks? Just because they're stupid? No. The Israeli Mossad is masters at providing false flag provocations. By means of deception, they have in their logo, "Thou shalt wage war." That is their motto. That's how they operate. You see, they just can't come in and provocate their American ally, their American puppet, I should say, Donald Trump, to start bombing Iran. No, they have to have a buildup. So they have to do provocation. I'm telling you, folks, don't believe everything you hear in the controlled media. I'm going to turn now to there was a couple of articles published in Business Insider magazine, published online after they appeared in the Business Insider magazine. One was written by a man named Sam Sheed, published on October 6th, 2016, or 2.5 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. The headline is, "Executives from Facebook, Google, and Microsoft explain why they use Israel for all of their R&D, research and development." Born just 68 years ago, the article reads, Israel has developed a reputation as one of the world's most innovative tech hubs. Silicon Valley multinationals in particular have cottoned on setting up offices in the region and acquiring numerous Israeli startup companies. Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Intel are among more than 300 multinationals that have opened up vast research and development facilities in the country, which is home to just 9 million people. But what is it that makes Israel such a hotbed of innovation? Executives from each of the aforementioned U.S. tech giants gave an audience of about 300 tech workers an insight during the DLD Innovation Conference in Tel Aviv last week. Google developer partner advocate Don Dodge said, quote, "My job at Google is to travel all over the world and talk to developers and startups and investors. I've been to every corner of the earth, China, Japan, Australia, all of Europe, the Nordics, everywhere. There is no other country on earth that thinks the same way that we, Google, do, like Israel does." Now, okay. Have you scratched your head yet with that statement? Quote, "Israel truly is the startup nation. Israel thinks like us. You break things, you make things, you're creative. It's special." Google, headquartered in Mountain View, California, first opened its biggest office in Israel back in 2006, when the search giant was something of a startup at just 5 years old. Google now employs more than 600 engineers in the country of Israel, and they work on several of Google's core products, including searches, maps, and live results. Now, we're going to show you how Google's live results is partnered up with Facebook, which we'll show you is a military application. About half of Google's engineers in Israel are graduates of Tel Aviv University, Dodge said. Quote, "There's an amazing source of talent here." Dodge said cheaper engineers in places like Russia, India, and China were just simply not as good. Quote, "It's about innovation, creativity, taking tremendous risks, and understanding how to get to market. That's what Israel does. It's not about the cost." Google also has a dedicated startup space in Tel Aviv known as Campus, which provides entrepreneurs with a place to start and grow their business. When an Israeli startup company gets Google's attention, Google will move in and try to acquire it, drawing on the talent and expertise in that startup for future products and services. For example, it acquired the Israeli security startup Slick Login, reportedly with the view to integrate its technology into a two-step verification process. Quote, "We made a lot of investments in companies in Israel, and we've acquired 5 of them," Dodge said. This is 2016, this article was written. Waze, W-A-Z-E, was the biggest at over $1 billion, and it was a great investment. Well, I can go on and on. There's an interview then with Facebook Israel CEO. So here we have Zuckerberg. We're going to talk about him with this incredible whistleblower. But Facebook CEO in Israel, Adi Sofer Tini. I kid you not, T-E-T-W-E-N-I, Tini. Adi Sofer Tini, the CEO of Facebook Israel, said the Palo Alto, California-based company Facebook first landed in Israel 3 years ago and now has its primary R&D team in the country, in addition to a team that works directly with the entrepreneurs in the local tech ecosystem. She said Facebook engineering team in Israel recently played a key role on one of Facebook's most recent products, but she would not name exactly what that product was. Teeny also stressed that the mentality and culture at Facebook's R&D center in Israel was comparable to Facebook's R&D facilities in Silicon Valley, where engineers, quote, move fast and break things, while wearing, quote, shorts and flip-flops. Quote, something is happening here in Israel, she said. There's a magic, and it's not easy to explain what it is, but Israel's a playground where it feels like home for the multinational. Oh. Let's then jump now to an earlier article that ties into this. Same Business Insider magazine. Michael B. Kelly wrote this article, published it June 7th, 2013. 11:20 a.m. Headlines. Did you know 2 secretive Israeli companies bugged the U.S. telecommunications grid, the entire U.S. telecommunication grid for the NSA? And following through with this story, it hasn't changed. They still do. 2 secretive Israeli companies. Let's talk about that. This came out of an April 2012 Wired magazine's written. I actually talked to this author, or this writer, James Bamford. He wrote a book because James Bamford, I asked him to come on the story behind the story. He politely refused. Says he didn't want to be public too much. Yeah. James Bamford wrote the book The Shadow Factory, the NSA from 9/11 to the eavesdropping on America. James Bamford broke this story, folks. 2 Israeli companies with extensive links to Israel's intelligence agency, the Mossad, provided all the hardware and the software to wire the entire U.S. telecommunications network for and on behalf of the National Security Agency, the NSA. By doing so, Bamford implies, companies like Facebook and Google don't have to explicitly provide the NSA with access to their servers, because major internet service providers, ISPs, such as AT&T and Verizon, already allow the U.S. signals to eavesdrop on all of their data anyway. Quote, Bamford writes, quote, according to a former Verizon employee briefed on the program, Verint, the company Verint, owned by Comverse, not Converse, folks, Comverse Communications, Verse Network Technology. Verint taps all communication lines at Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, everything. Even landlines, folks. Nothing you say on the phone, whether it's a cellular phone or a landline, nothing you say is private. You are being bugged. It is routed through Israel. Verint. An engineer last name of Klein, discovered the, quote, secret room at AT&T's central office in San Francisco, through which the NSA and Mossad, because this goes to Verint is completely a Mossad operation, quote, vacuumed up all internet, cell phone, landline phone call data from ordinary Americans with the cooperation of AT&T through the wiretapping rooms, emphasizing that, quote, much of the data sent through AT&T to the NSA was purely domestic. NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake corroborated Klein's assertions, testifying that while the NSA is using Israeli-made NARUS, N-A-R-U-S hardware to, quote, seize and save all, A-double-L-A-L, all personal electronic communications. These are the two secret companies, folks, both Verint and NARUS. V-E-R-I-N-T, NARUS, N-A-R-U-S, were founded in Israel in the 1990s. Both provide monitoring and intercept capabilities to service providers and government organizations, promoting claims that their equipment can access and retain large amounts of information on a vast number of targets. NARUS's prime product, the Semantic Traffic Analyzer. Semantic. Oh my goodness. The Semantic Traffic Analyzer is a software application that runs on standard IBM or Dell servers using the Linux operating system. It's renowned within certain circles for its ability to inspect traffic in real time on all high bandwidth pipes, identifying the packets of interest as they race by at up to 10 gigabytes per second. Now, NARUS is a Mountain View, California, Silicon Valley company. The marketing vice president of NARUS, Steve Bannerman, said this in an article by Wired magazine. Quote, anything that comes through any internet protocol network, we can record. Quote, we can reconstruct all emails along with attachments, see what web pages any individual clicked on. We can reconstruct their voice over internet protocols calls. With the telecom wiretap, the NSA only needs companies like Microsoft, Google, and Apple to passively participate while the agency intercepts, stores, and analyzes their communication data. Now, then it goes on to show the NSA connect. This is, oh my goodness, aerial photographs of the NSA Bluffton, Utah Data Collection Center. Again, it's $2.5 billion. In 2007, a former commander of the highly secretive Unit 8200, basically Israel's version of the NSA, told Forbes that the technology of Comverse, basically the company that owns Verint, is completely and totally based on Unit 8200 technology. Does it surprise you that Jacob Kobe Alexander, one of the founders of Verint, is a former Mossad officer, high-level Mossad intelligence officer? And then the co-founder and former chairman of NARUS, Ori Cohen, told Fortune magazine in 2001 that his partners have all done the bedrock and technology work for all Israeli intelligence, Mossad. Back in 2011, another former chief of Unit 8200 acknowledged to the Israeli paper Haaretz that high-tech firms around the world all employ both Unit 8200 equipment and its veteran personnel. Okay, now I've set this table. I hope I haven't bored you. I hope you're still listening. Now listen to what the insiders say about Facebook and why this is. Again, folks, if you listen to this and you continue to use Facebook, well, I'm sorry. What can I say? I do not personally Facebook. I just don't. I don't push a Facebook like. I don't like or dislike. I just don't use it because I know what it's about. Now listen up. Listen carefully.
Betsy here for the American Intelligence Media. We have just released a report, Facebook Insider Confesses All. It's on our main website at aimfortruth.org. However, many of you who don't speak English or read English ask that I read the article, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Actually, I'm going to read the letter that we received from a Facebook insider. Now, if you would like to have this article translated, then all you need to do is go over to our site and look on the page. You will see a translate button, and you will get at least a rough translation of this article. So now I'm going to begin reading the letter. If you wanted to read our introduction to how we received the letter, what it all means, then please go to our website. To every Facebook user, Mark Zuckerberg and all of us who were there from the beginning are lying to you and using your personal life as a government-controlled experiment in brainwashing and mind control. Basically, a weaponized system of the military that got out of control. At this point, Mark Zuckerberg has lost control of a company that he never really owned or operated. Truly, anyone who has ever worked with Mark knows that his mind is a blank and that he is nothing more than a parrot for the government who created him. Mark is incapable of running a McDonald's, let alone one of the most powerful companies in the world. Not even his name is real, and his identity has always been covered up. Mark was chosen as a child for a CIA training program because his relatives were some of the people creating the program. I'm not making excuses for Mark, but his choices have not been his own. Yes, he has become an evil sociopath who once believed in his heart of hearts that if he decided he wanted to be president, all he had to do was say he wanted the job and Facebook would deliver the election to him. That is the level of brainwashing Mark is at. He's not in contact with reality. You might think that a madman who could think he could become president because he said so would be discovered and accused as a fraud. Well, that has happened repeatedly with the other 3 teams that were working at Harvard under Harvard President Larry Summers to create what DARPA and In-Q-Tel wanted the most, a cyber weapon that could control the minds of anyone that could be lured into it. Facebook was always a military weapon, just like Eric Schmidt's Google, which was incubated in the same fashion that Facebook was. Mark was a patsy, but a ruthless, heartless, cold-blooded, non-human patsy. He became this way through the brainwashing he received in his high school years by a DARPA program called TIA that needed a boy genius to be the front man. This scam would make Mark into a global model of the young, cool, irreverent computer geniuses that rule the world and lead everyone to a cyber god of artificial intelligence. Mark was just an unwitting puppet at first. I felt sorry for him. I remember when I first became roommates with Mark in our sophomore year at Harvard. We were in Kirkland House on JFK Street and had to endure Dustin and Andrew. Mark hated them because they prevented us from sleeping together, even though we were in the same room. It was frustrating and kept our relationship secret. Little did I know that the thing that drew me to Mark, a certain openness for listening to anyone, also made him extremely promiscuous with other sexes. Mark had no morals, conscience, or shame. He also chased women on Craigslist and would sometimes just disappear to rendezvous with them. He was like a blank slate that simply echoes whatever was happening in his environment. I loved and hated this aspect of his personality, but later found out that he and his brother and cousin were all the same way due to the brainwashing programs they were subjected to during high school. If certain people spoke to Mark, In person or on the phone, he would drop everything and do whatever they told him to do. Certain people had more power and effect over him. I eventually found out from Mark breaking down and crying that the brainwashing was permanent and was all part of the position these people had promised to create for Mark. He didn't even know what the position was or entailed. But one thing Mark was sure of, he was only placed at Harvard for a while until his position became available to him. Mark was certain that this promise of a position included a great deal of money and power, aphrodisiacs to an incurable narcissist. I must admit that I came under the power of Mark's surety that he didn't need Harvard, a degree, or good grades. Mark eventually dropped out of Harvard at the end of our sophomore year and became filthy rich and more powerful than he could have imagined. I also admit that I rode on Mark's success to become quite wealthy myself. All 4 of the members of the club Mark eventually named the Fellowship became wealthy by no means of our own. We simply knew Mark's secrets. You see, Mark could never be faithful to anyone, but he loved men more than women. He actually used to hate all women. Mark cheated and wanted to bring the new boy home to me to join in. I was never into it like Mark was. He was abusive but would never admit it, especially to young boys. Eventually, there were 3 of us that remained lovers with Mark. Mark always had panic attacks and would break down frequently due to the brainwashing. He would cry about his mother and the torture she let them do to him. At those times, Mark's mouth ran on open, and he would tell his bed partners about all the pain and horrible plans these evil people did to him. Early on, his doubts and fears almost consumed him at night, and he could hardly sleep due to nightmares. Once Mark became filthy rich, he simply used drugs to mask these fears. But if you get him upset by asking about the creation of Facebook, Mark will freak out and have a panic attack because he always messes up the story and looks like an idiot. He can't stand questions about how he made Facebook because he didn't. I had to laugh as one of his stupid answers. I saw that Harvard didn't have Facebook, so I made one, or something close to that. The journalists let him get away with that lie, like they always have. Mark Zuckerberg, did not write one single line of programming source code for Facebook. These are lies and propaganda generated by his government military handlers. Everyone knows that the Winklevoss twins, Aaron and Cameron, won a $65 million lawsuit settlement against Mark because they knew that their little Harvard Connection HC piece was just adjunct code attached to the original stolen source code, which was given to Mark by Professor James Chandler and IBM. That 65 million bit of dirt knowledge was pretty profitable for a couple of cute Harvard crew rower jocks with no interest in me. Mark simply had others adjust the code into what was government-sponsored military weaponization of a cyber warfare project directed by the president of Harvard, Larry Summers. Even Summers himself had his own budding student and staff directory being developed by the Harvard computer staff called Facebook. Mark didn't even create the name. The Winklevoss twins had developed their own version in the competition for the government contract, HC, that they had changed to Connect You. Aaron Greenspan was developing House System, and Paul Siglia was working with Mark to modify his Street Facts software into a Facebook too. Mark developed nothing, absolutely nothing. Even the famous hacking of the Harvard systems was not done by Mark himself. Mark was the middleman for those who were the overseers of the big project, as it was called. From the president of Harvard to the PayPal Mafia, National Venture Capital Association, InQtel, DARPA, NASA, CIA, DIA, to the worst patent thieves in America, James Chandler, Hillary Clinton, David Kapos, Robert Mueller, and the rest of the big tech group. Mark is just like the other fake front men chosen to represent the numerous other social media companies. Eric Schmidt was the poster child for the Silicon Valley geniuses who ran corporations that are basically exempt from prosecution as the facade for military weaponized companies that are always funded by the same evil bankers. Fidelity Investment, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, BlackRock, JP Morgan, HSBC, Excel Partners, Kleiner Perkins, and the rest of the Silicon Valley venture capitalists who are always making a killing from companies who get no-bid government contracts. These companies like Facebook are just an excuse for black ops experiments to control the enemy, and Mark doesn't know who the enemy is. Mark's lack of moral compass made him the perfect patsy for the new military experiments on U.S. citizens. I believe now, since Mark was well aware of the evil intentions of the government, that he has committed crimes of many types with the clear, premeditated intention of harming every Facebook user. That is why Mark let Facebook be used to manipulate elections. He has no moral code. I personally saw the template that Hillary ordered that uses Facebook to manipulate voters to win elections for her. Given the amount of election interference by big tech in 2016, I became a reluctant believer in miracles. I have seen the truth concerning the supposed Russian interference and can tell you that it was all made up, and in fact was the exact opposite of what the media reported. I have seen so many illegal actions of Facebook that I am indeed complicit with the crimes. That is one of the reasons I must remain anonymous. But I assure you, if I testified, Mark and I would be locked up along with the other members of the fellowship, as well as many, many other Facebook employees. It is due to the truth that it is currently coming out in the media that I feel I can reveal what I witnessed so that Mark and the U.S. and British military-controlled Facebook can be charged with criminal activity instead of simply being hit with antitrust charges that only split Facebook into many subsidiaries, which would make simply Mark even more rich. Then the poor suckers who believed in Facebook will be left holding the bag, an empty bag of a gutted Facebook worth nothing or a little or nothing. Mark will simply rebrand and go on with multiple companies that will be just as big as Facebook. He will escape unscathed, protected by his military handlers, who, by the way, were inside traders from the beginning of Facebook, and who will be allowed to buy into the new companies from the beginning also. Once again, the use of taxpayer dollars goes to private corporations run by stooges and controlled by non-Americans. Yes, I just called Mark a stooge because he actually has no clue what he's doing at all. Just ask him to write a simple program in any code he would like. Any. He can't. He's a fraud and always was. I will not tell you who the members of Mark Zuckerberg's fellowship group were. I can point out that all the original members of Facebook knew from the beginning that it was a military project for cyber warfare mind control. Everything done from the beginning was an experiment to see just how far a social media platform could go to conquer the enemy through behavioral manipulation with electronic warfare. The idea that Mark wanted to connect all college students in America was a novel idea that was far from the true intention of mind control of every user in the world. Free platforms like Google, Gmail, Facebook, and the rest were confidence tricks to get users to experiment on. My old buddy Sean Parker, an early member of Facebook, has confessed all to the media and specifically told the truth that Facebook was meant as a cyber drug to create and control addicts, digital addicts. As Sean said, we knew from the beginning it was harming every user, and that's why we never let our friends or our children use these systems. It harms them tremendously and was the original intent of the media. Mark and I were told by representatives of DARPA that that was the intent of Facebook from its inception. The U.S. Patriot Act allows the military to consider every American a possible terrorist or enemy warfighter until proven otherwise. Every person on the internet, which was also created by DARPA, is considered a cyber terrorist, and the military sees it as their job to create systems to surveil, target, disarm, and aggressively remote control the user. I hated the idea from the first time I heard of it, Personally, I have never used Facebook, and I don't let anyone I love use it. Mark would use patriot arguments, like the ones mentioned above, to justify his participation in this Black Ops CIA operation to the fellowship. We argued with him, but to no avail. Mark basically believed anything his controllers told him. We would sometimes convince him that the project was dead wrong, but all it took was one phone call from above, and Mark went back to his scheming. It was truly pathetic to see that Mark had no freedom, but was told what to do. He was also so poorly organized and such a muddled thinker, he couldn't get anything done. Homework, schoolwork, project work, nothing. So there was always cleanup to be done after Mark, especially when the company got big. Cleanup would include stupid stuff like paying others millions for stealing their code, making stupid statements every time he opened his mouth, or the lack of attention he gave to the running of his company. Mark was always a mess, and the fellowship, as well as Larry Summers' squeeze, Sheryl Sandberg, those soulless megalomaniacs deserve each other, helped the handlers control Mark, were always picking up the broken pieces and trying to glue them back together. But this time, Facebook and Mark cannot be fixed. Many of the original Facebook players and the fellowship had been paid off in huge bribes to keep us quiet. CIA secrecy agreements grow on every plant at Facebook, but the Facebook insiders are turning against Mark for many good reasons. The board of directors wants him fired. Mark's British controller sent Baron Richard Allen to rein Mark in, but he failed miserably. Even Sir Nick Clegg, ex-deputy prime minister of Britain, was sent to shut Mark up, but to no avail. Even the second in charge of Britain couldn't stop Mark and his non-stop stupidity. Mark opens his mouth, it costs the company billions. Mark testifies, and everyone finds out that he doesn't know a single thing about his company. Mark knows nothing because he doesn't do anything and hasn't really shown up for work since the beginning. He seems to be allergic to work and can't stand meetings unless he's announcing something. He is the worst manager in history, and everyone will tell you the same if asked. We all play like Mark runs a company, but that's not true. Mark can't run himself effectively, let alone Facebook. That is why he was failing at Harvard and was going to be kicked out for bad grades, even after I did much of his work for him. I can honestly say that at this point, there are no insiders who have any faith in Mark to run the company or even speak in public. We believe that even after Larry Summers, the father of Facebook, who planted Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook to shut Mark up and stop revealing that Facebook is the tool of the Democrat agenda for globalism, cannot fix the company. This is one of the points I'm most angry about. Mark has become, over the years, no friend of America. In fact, he hates America and rants on how proud he is to avoid U.S. taxes and to cheat the American people, whom he considers to be animals. Mark believes he is a higher being, above human beings. He now believes it was all his work that made Facebook. He's completely deluded by his own propaganda, which is nothing but lies. It is because Mark is now a danger to himself and the world that I must tell the true story of how Facebook and social media have become enemies of Americans and the world. The ostensible goal was to create a social directory in Harvard where people could share in small groups. The real intent was to create a social network to manipulate the world. Mark liked the idea but was too lazy to do anything about it. He stuck his nose into the others' camps to see what they were doing, but he himself just talked about it with good programmers and made them promises. Thus, numerous lawsuits ensued from those promises. Larry Summers continued to call Mark into his office for updates, so Mark just lied. Occasionally, others would be in the office with Larry Summers, but one person stood out and showed up at many more meetings in the future. This man was obviously the person in charge of the project. His name was a former Harvard law professor, James Chandler. He boasted that he was one of the top idea people for DARPA and that he had actually developed lower-level programming languages for the Army. He pretended to be interested in me, but I could tell that it was a political act. Guys like me can just sense these things. Over time, it came out that Summers and Chandler had much bigger plans for social media project and had some outside sources of help to complete the project. Mark found it odd that Summers, Chandler, and eventually Sheryl Sandberg did not put much pressure on Mark to produce, but were interested in everything Mark was learning, from spying on the other groups for almost 2 years. One day, Mark was called to Summers' office in Massachusetts Hall to meet a most unusual man. His name was Andrew Marshall, and he was the head of the Naval Intelligence Net Assessment Office. Mark was terrified of Marshall from the beginning. Marshall had Mark sign a government secrecy agreement and other security agreements before he told Mark the ultimate military nature of what the Harvard Facebook project entailed. Mark and Harvard were simply being used as an incubation think tank, as a cover for a military project that needed a corporate face. Professor Chandler said he had discovered the source code that would accomplish the seemingly impossible task of making social directory scalable to billions of people. Chandler droned on, as Harvard professors like to do, about how Harvard academic elites were the best choices to do early testing because of their superior intellects. He explained that this scalability dilemma was not being solved by the military's usual Microsoft, IBM, and Oracle go-to military intelligence suppliers for reasons that were above my head. He said that they had found a company who had solved the problem, but was not willing to be used by the military as black ops project against Americans and the rest of the world. Chandler and Summers had selected Mark as their frontman to lie and claim he had written the source code for scalability. Chandler explained that the government had seized the source code from an inventor and his company for use in the DARPA Harvard Facebook project. He explained in very flowery intellectual property theft language that Mark may get sued by the inventor, but that DARPA would shield him. Mark told him he was willing to take that chance. Mark knew full well that the people who had brainwashed him had a big plan and his part was simply to do as they told him to do. But now Mark was getting scared because James Chandler was a member of the president's national security team, a top national security and patent lawyer, and a truly mean, ugly, and frightening black man who could easily turn on you like a pit bull. Larry Summers had those same elitist bully traits, but was the president of Harvard and an economic world leader. Mark felt that he was being groomed and protected by some very powerful people. But it was Andrew Marshall, the one they called Yoda, who scared the pants off of Mark. After Mark had been read into the plan by Summers and Chandler, their boss wanted to meet Mark to make sure that he could be trusted to be a part of this overarching evil plan to manipulate all of cyberspace as if it were a war arena. Andrew Marshall did not like Mark at all. I witnessed it myself when I was asked to attend one of Andrew Marshall's Highland Forum groups as a major executive for Facebook along with Mark. Every time Mark opened his mouth, Marshall would stare at him until Mark would shut up. Marshall indicated in this meeting that Mark himself was the biggest problem with the Facebook operation. Mark was so happy when Andrew Marshall died not long ago. Mark now takes his orders from Marshall understudies Dick O'Neill and James Baker, who run Highlands Group. Chandler also worked for Highlands Group and directed numerous operations, working directly with Andrew Marshall and James Baker. The Facebook operation also coordinated their activities with Rose Law Firm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the group that gathered around Hillary Clinton's patent thefts. Every Facebook insider who was there from the beginning knew these things to be true, but would never speak of it for fear of retaliation and possible death. We are speaking about a theft of literally many trillions of dollars in intellectual property, trade secrets, patents, designs, and stolen programming source code. Mark bragged for 2 years about being able to write the source code for Facebook platform, but he did not produce a single line of code. For 2 years, all the fellowship heard about were promises of a breakthrough at any moment. We heard one excuse right after the other. We learned later it was because the inventor had run into some R&D roadblocks that needed sorted out first. Mark continued to spy on the other groups working on the Harvard Facebook student and staff directories, made by many promises to everyone involved, but did not follow through. Mark kept promising he was going to just sit down and write the code as if it was no big deal. His meetings with Summers, Chandler, Marshall, and others continued, and Mark always came back encouraged. Then one day, Mark got terribly excited about hacking a fellow student at Harvard because he had some part of the Facebook program. The particular student was an upperclassman named Max McKibben, who lived next door in Winthrop House, literally 100 feet from our Kirkland house front door. Mark got the best hacker to come to our room and use a special school computer to hack into McKibben's personal Harvard email account to steal several white papers on an invention just like the one Chandler had described. This white paper described exactly what Mark had been talking about for 2 years, and now a Harvard student had a full description of a program that could do the same thing. It was on October 28, 2003, that Mark returned from Summers' office and announced, "Let the hacking begin." That hacking stole the white paper that had been sent to the son of Michael McKibben, the owner of Leader Technologies and the real inventor of scalable social media. Michael had sent his son Max the white papers written to describe the new invention. When Mark learned that Chandler was Michael's patent attorney, the theft finally put a name to the target Chandler had talked about in vague terms. Chandler had requested that Michael write up a detailed explanation of the system and how it worked. Once Mark showed the stolen white papers to Chandler, Chandler confessed he already had a complete evaluation copy of the source code as Michael's patent attorney, that he was using a spy tactic called strategic deception and pretending to help Michael and Leader Technologies file patents while he was secretly providing Michael's invention code to DARPA's IBM Eclipse Foundation cyber warfare partners. And a note to people, this isn't in the text, if you go to the site, we do have a copy of Mark Zuckerberg's emails back and forth talking about the hacking begins, but that is posted on our site if you want to grab it. Those are in PDF form. So let me continue reading the letter from this insider. Chandler had requested that Michael write up a detailed explanation to the system and how it worked. Once Mark showed the stolen white papers to Chandler, Chandler confessed that he was already given a complete evaluation copy. Chandler told Mark that IBM Eclipse was preparing Michael's program as they spoke to give to Mark for the Facebook launch at EclipseCon 04 in San Francisco right after the Harvard January reading period. He said the plan was to transfer all of the NSA's LifeLog data as soon as possible to the Facebook platform as well. He also told Mark that he would be moving to Silicon Valley after the term was over, and that the next phase of the plan for him would happen in California. Dustin and I went with him that summer, but I decided to return to Boston and graduate. That was a sad separation. I was not happy he got rid of his Craigslist girls. The few that I actually saw looked like sad street urchins. Chandler had not seen Michael's white papers yet and was eager to have them. Mark sent him the hacked copies. Chandler said, with the inventor's first ever public write-up and the source code, the Highlands Group and the IBM Eclipse Foundation now had what they needed to prepare the platform for Mark to launch the Facebook, later shortened to Facebook, at EclipseCon 04 in February. I now realize that Chandler took the stolen source code from Michael McKibben and Leader Technologies and gave it to the IBM Eclipse Foundation, who turned around and gave it as open source, the most lucrative intellectual property in history, to all the social media giants as open source without charging a penny. What I'm telling you now is a composite understanding of what I knew early on in the fellowship group of Mark Zuckerberg and what I have learned up to this time as a core insider of Facebook to this very day. It is not only Mark who needs to pay for his crimes, but many others also. IBM Eclipse Foundation plays like they are moral, honest, and philanthropically give away intellectual property to other companies who essentially became monopolies with the stolen programming source code. This is laughable, and I told Mark when he was being told this information by his handlers that the plan would never work because anyone can see through such stupidity. But to this day, besides Facebook insiders and the Facebook group, no one has ever told me that they suspect the IBM Eclipse Foundation or the Highlands Forum are corrupt. You see, the bigger the lie, the easier it is to get people to believe it. Mark Zuckerberg, did not create Facebook. Facebook is a governmental monopoly doing the most advanced virtual behavior modification on the planet with stolen and modified patents, intellectual property, and trade secrets from inventors who were not remunerated for their inventions. I personally knew this, even when it was happening. I felt sick the whole time, and this led to many, many arguments between me and Mark. The other members of the fellowship felt the same way I did. Eventually, Mark had to buy all of us off with large sums of money over the years. We have not spoken up before now, but I personally cannot hold my silence any longer. I must speak out openly about the criminal surveillance Mark does through Facebook because it gets worse every day. Mark's handlers tell him to allow more surveillance, even though security breaches, selling customer data, allowing for spying by the CIA, NSA, DIA, GCHQ, MI6, Five Eyes, lying to Congress, meddling in elections, allowing everyone access to Facebook data, censoring conservatives, being a platform for the Democrat Party, and many other charges have been brought against Facebook in other countries in America. Mark will not listen to me or anyone else about stopping the insanity. I believe he's unstable and not fit to run Facebook. When I saw the $1.5 billion from George Soros and the Atlantic Council bringing in the AI system, some built by the Cambridge Digital Forensic Research Laboratory, used in Europe to stop free speech, I had had enough. It was then that I knew Mark was truly being used by evil forces and that even he couldn't stop it. He seemed to have a death wish to destroy Facebook and reveal some of its evil intent. This was ruining the company I'm trying to help run. There was no other avenues that I could take the company down that would deter Mark from the total destruction of Facebook. Mark had been told to win the country for Hillary or kill the company trying. He was making astounding mistakes that showed the true evil foundations of Facebook. Our secrets were gushing out like blood from a slaughtered pig. I kept talking to Mark, trying to change his mind, but he became more insane and impossible to talk to. Mark gave up control of the company to a crowd stumbling over themselves to take personal credit for Facebook's turnaround, including Highlands Group, DHS, DOD, Naval Intelligence, Serco, Crown Agents, IBM Eclipse Foundation, Clinton Foundation, Open Society Foundation, Google, Alphabet, Schmidt, Sandberg, Thiel, Hoffman, Breyer, Louis, Ketterson, Goldman Sachs, Blankfein, Diamond, Microsoft, Gates, Allen, Thomas, Ballmer, Ozzie, Nadella, Milner, Obama, Pritzker, Hillary, Kuchar, Bono, Soros, Lamont, the Queen's men, Richard Allen, and Nick Clegg, and the rest of the gang who were eager to clean up Mark's messes. I could see that Facebook was on its last leg, but I couldn't understand why Mark would kill the company. Then one day I realized what Mark was doing with the obvious crash landing of Facebook. He was being told that he would get a deal with the government charges against the company and would not have to pay billions in fines. The deal would be like the government's deal with Standard Oil when they were charged with antitrust monopoly issues. They were made to break up into 7 different companies, all of which became as big or bigger than Standard Oil itself. Splitting up the monopoly made the owner 7 times richer. That's what Mark is doing. He wants Facebook to be broken up instead of answer to the crimes it has willingly committed. Corporations can simply go bankrupt. dissolve, crash and burn, or do what Google did when it created a new company called Alphabet, which is now called the mother of Google and is worth even more. How a child becomes a parent is a new one for me. Eric Schmidt showed Mark exactly what to do. And please remember that Eric Schmidt was also Mark's mentor and the first person to invest millions in Facebook before it went public. Eric Schmidt made billions off of his insider trading knowledge from the Highlands Forum investment in Facebook. Britain's offshore banks feed them with endless money laundering and deal flow as long as the Queen gets her cut. All of us insiders know this global money game is totally rigged to perpetuate this evil power. I don't want to go to my grave knowing that I didn't do something to atone for my sins in perpetuating these lies. I believe that Mark is doing everything in his power to get President Donald Trump deposed, just as he did everything he could to get Hillary elected. If Trump continues, the globalists lose. Mark is a true globalist. He is not an American anymore. Mark essentially does not have a plan for Facebook. He simply does what he's told and always has. Mark has made no decisions on his own, not one. This current decision to destroy Facebook from the inside out is nothing more than Mark's handlers using Mark in their last hours of power. Trump will win 2020 and Facebook will die. The only question left is whether Trump will charge Mark Fakerberg with the crimes he committed. I, for one, want Mark in jail along with his handlers. I have personally been threatened and intimidated by these big tech monsters since I met Mark Zuckerberg Greenberg, a person who truly does not know his own name and who he is, and yet is one of the richest people on earth. Mark did not earn nor deserve a single penny he has been given. Mark is a cardboard cutout who has lost his way and is completely delusional at this point. As a Facebook insider, I demand Mark be fired and all assets taken from him due to his nonstop lying to stockholders and Facebook users. The board of directors, underwriters, and institutional investors all know the secret government contracts have been propping up the company since the beginning, but most average shareholders do not. It is a government-owned and operated military psyops weapon that has gotten out of control and been used for treasonous purposes and for seditious actions against the American people. After she got sick of the lies, Mark's former speechwriter, Catherine Lose, described in her 2004 book, The Boy Kings, that Facebook has stolen personal data and sold it, created a dark profile on every user and sold it to everyone who would pay the price, created secret files of compromising photos, allowed all government agencies to access all user data, breached every user agreement, lied continuously to all users, built in backdoors and zero-day programs for the military and many other unethical, immoral, and illegal activities. Did Mark Zuckerberg Greenberg willingly and with intent allow these criminal activities to go unchecked on Facebook? You bet he did. And he's still doing it. And it's getting worse every day. Like other Facebook insiders, I want no part of this squelching of free speech or illegal surveillance activities or the purposeful experimentation on users to develop new and better means to electronically control, manipulate, and imprison people. I have stood against Mark's immoral and evil actions since our freshman year at Harvard. Nothing has changed except that Mark has gotten worse and his handlers have become so demanding that they are condemning Facebook to a trash heap and creating the circumstances for Mark to become even richer and more insane. His next projects include a system much like what Eric Schmidt has created for China, a social credit system that controls the freedom of every American. When Facebook is broken up, the new companies will have the Eric Schmidt Dragonfly social credit system built in. When Facebook is broken up, the new companies will have the Eric Schmidt Dragonfly social credit system built in. Mark wants to be like Eric and control the world from a digital ivory tower and oversee the depopulation of the earth. These maniacs believe they are above the human race and are actually higher beings sent to earth to control the masses. From my experience, these attitudes are extremely prevalent with Silicon Valley tech giants, and they make me sick. The time has come to simply end the fake social media experiments and call them government black ops projects. I personally know most of the cyber tech lords and can testify that they do not possess the tech skills they claim they founded their companies. They are simply tech thieves, like Mark Zuckerberg, who needs to pay back those they stole from and be put in jail for their crimes. I personally am willing to testify without immunity and suffer whatever the consequences I deserve for knowing these things and never bringing them forward until now. I know that the corruption is so great in Washington, D.C., that I would not stand a chance of bringing forth this information without being squelched, killed, or silenced, like I have seen done to others. I suggest that the new Attorney General simply read this letter, investigate, and then ask Mark Greensburg to program a single line of coherent code. When he cannot, lock him up.
Well, there you have it, folks. Oh, Mr. Rose says, I'm so glad I was banned from Facebook. And this pizza is yummy. Oh, enjoy your pizza. I hope it's a real pizza, not ordered from Pizzagate, Mr. Arnold. I'm joking. Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. That is a, shall we say it best, it's a ball buster. Connect the dots. The big picture is simply one that has to be connected. Mark Greenberg. And if you really understand what this radio show has been trying to do for 20 plus years, connect the dots. That's all we ask, folks. Clearly, Mark Greenberg is a multi-generational product of satanic ritual abuse. That is simply what happens in these upper echelon, elite, Harvard-trained people that are tied in to Israel. Do you see? That's what they do, folks. They clearly, as you read this, you see that he's programmed that he is above the goy. He's above the human cattle. He is an elitist. This is what drives these monsters, ladies and gentlemen. This is what drives the deep state. When I said in the very beginning of this broadcast how it ties into the tech giants, Google, Facebook, et cetera, having their startup in Israel now, you see it's because of the protectionism of it, because of the elitism of who they wrongfully believe they are. They believe, you see, they are the utopian creators of the new order. And that useless goyim will be hung or educated, if not re-educated, then hung by the neck until dead or guillotined. And that is depopulation, ladies and gentlemen. I really would have liked to have had Major Burdock and Philip on the show tonight, because I'm going to tell something that's in my blood ran. My blood ran cold this last Tuesday. I actually had a conversation that stemmed off of a chat group that Alex and I had started clear back when we began working with Edward Hendry and the flat earth questions. Again, I am saying that objectivity of studying and of researching is the key thing. It doesn't matter whether we are a spinning globe or a flat plane. Ultimately, we need to find truth. We need to search for truth among all things. And that's above all things, is what we're talking about here, folks. Wow, I had this gentleman who was part of a major university, a Jewish gentleman, I got to tell you that. He absolutely said something to me on a phone conversation that was couched, I must say, in a warning to me. But it was much more than that, because he said, you know, there's a couple of things that concern the powers that be. I'm talking about the deep state, Illuminati greats. They are fearful that people are waking up to their lies, coming back from the days of Baal worship in the biblical era. You see, Baal is Satan. Baal is another name for Satan himself, the adversary, the prince of the power of the air. Yeah, the air, where we get the cloud. You know, the cloud is where all of these things originate, folks. The cloud, where there's artificial intelligence and robotics and Google pioneering the new artificial intelligence handlers to make this utopian society happen. This is all tied in. This is why Facebook is so important part of what the entire network is about. It's the cloud, folks. It's the prince of the power of the air. Call him whatever you want to call him. Baal, Satan, fallen angel, Lucifer. It doesn't matter. It's real, folks. Demonic entities are real. These elitists have been multi-generational, satanically, ritually abused. Their minds are controlled by demonic entities. Jewish mysticism is real, folks. It's not anti-Semitic to declare this has been going on for thousands of years. Jesus of Nazareth in the Bible told these miscreants back in he didn't mince words. He says, "You are of your father, the devil, and your works will you do, which are his works." He called them a generation of vipers, of serpents. And then he called the little children together and said, and blessed the little children. We're talking about children of before puberty, which were the lowest rungs of the Jewish society. Really? Child to be seen and not heard? Yeah. Jesus called them together and said and it said, recorded in every part of every scripture in all four Gospels, Jesus says, he that would offend one of these little ones, this is the King James translation, he that would offend one of these little ones is better than a millstone, a giant 2-ton millstone. He placed it around his neck, and he drowned in the depths of the sea. You see, the Greek word for offend, the Greek word actually has sexual molestation connotations. He that would sexually molest and satanically, ritually abuse these little ones, these people are going to be drowned in the depths of hell. And hell is real, folks. So, Mark Greenberg, a.k.a. Zuckerberg, you just, and again, whoever this anonymous insider is, believe me, the handlers much know who he is. He's another Seth Rich. He's going to be taken out. He's going to be murdered. It's in the cards. When Seth Rich had, as again a Jewish gentleman, another Jewish gentleman, in Creighton University law firm, dared to leak the Democratic committee's inside information to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, Seth Rich was killed. We talked about this when it was happening. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks had to be stopped and taken out because of that. Folks, this is the reality. This is what Facebook is. This is what artificial intelligence is. This is what Google is. This is the R&D that's going on in Israel, because you see, this is the headquarters of the beast. You better understand it, and you better, again, stop it. Because how do you stop it? You just don't be a part of it. You can be in the world but not of the world. Do not post on Facebook. Do not post on Twitter. Do not post on Instagram. It's all tied into, again, the military-industrialist complex, DARPA, and Big Brother. Again, as I said in the first part of the show, I hear it all. Oh, Dr. Ott, come on. It is totally okay to post a timeline on Facebook and do a checkup and do this and do that. Why is it so harmful, you may ask, to post pictures, to post updates, to post what you think is neat to have it shared across the board? Why is it okay to post on a blog? Not okay on a post. Folks, you got to understand what's happening as they sort this into the cloud. Okay, they understand what makes you tick. They understand if you post 25 times on Facebook, they can absolutely manipulate your opinions, your ideas, and your concepts by interfacing with others. And clearly then you begin to absorb things like, it's okay to be homosexual. Homosexuals are born that way. I can go on and on, folks. It's okay to be immoral. It's okay. It's the norm. We look at what's going on in Hollywood as being the norm. If you come out and say that being straight is godly and being homosexual is a sin, they'd be targeted. What this individual I talked with on Tuesday, again, a professor at a major university, working with the I guess I can just say the entire thing. The philosophy departments, the networking of atheistic philosophy departments. Again, trying to get people to believe the Bible is outdated and to be dumped and not to be trusted. And that God is just a figment of a superstitious bunch of early tribesmen and clansmen called the Hebrews that were psychopathic. This gentleman flat out told me, he says, the biggest danger to the powers that be is the so-called flat earth movement. And so there are the shills that come in, the Mark Sargents and others who want to control it and then make it appear to be just what the opposition wants to be, completely crazy nonsense. Two parts that they fear: people waking up to the reality of the earth, just as the Bible says it is, and completes and says in Job 38:14, flat with upturned edges, as a lump of clay under a seal, a signet ring. Folks, exactly what the Bible says it is. Why this is important, you see, is people start waking up to truth. It short circuits the programming. This is why it's important. I submit Edward Henry needs another 4 or 5 chapters in his book. And the second part of it is the people are waking up to the vaccine agenda, because you see, people are being programmed to believe it's Scully. It's okay to vaccinate kids at 38 times before they're 6 years old. Give them all this toxic gobbledygook going in that messes up their endocrine system, messes up their hormones, messes up their frontal lobes, calcifies their frontal lobes. So when they're on Facebook, as they grow into teens, and brush their teeth with sodium fluoride toothpaste, you see, they're completely controlled puppets, completely and totally, and wired in, where they'll do nothing but sit on Facebook and post and realize they're just being puppets on a string. This gentleman told me that the best thing that could happen to the world is to have all people who believe that vaccines are wrong and are anti-vaccine and are embracing the flat earth movement to be strung up by the neck and hung on a gallows, or better yet, have their head disconnected from their body. I thought he was being facetious and using a metaphor. I said, you can't be serious. He said, no, I'm absolutely serious. The latest unofficial polling that these people use found that more and more people, the last poll 2 years ago was 3% of the American people believe the earth is flat. Now it's like 5% and growing. They are losing control. There's no more vocal advocate for anti-vaccination agenda and the truth of the flat earth than Alex McGowan Studer. And we have to believe, we're told that he committed suicide by hanging, by finding himself. A person found him without a suicide note, by the way. Yeah, I think Alex was depressed. I think he was frustrated. He'd spent some time, and I think wrongfully so, in a San Francisco prison system that is the heart of the beast, as we're talking about here. The message is, you see, here's Alex McGowan Studer, a loner, non-family man, but very much, as I submit, a lover of truth and a student to find out. He fully understood who the enemy was, and he's gone. And I've talked to people that have known him, and the message they say that they got was, it's not good to be crazy. And he's painted to be a crazy, depressed sociopath, took his own life. But here I am talking to a gentleman who needs to remain nameless, but I got to tell you, he's quite predominant in the alternative media. And he made the statement that all advocates of anti-vaccination and promoters of the flat earth agenda are so crazy and so dangerous, they should be executed publicly. I got a chill. Oh my goodness, where is this craziness going? And my heart is heavy with this. So all I can do is tell you folks, thank God for people who post things like this insider letter. Zuckerberg, Greenberg, whatever his name is, complete fraud. The guy is a parasite. And really, so many of that tribe are just that. They don't produce anything. They don't write one single line of code. They're parasites. They suck off the lifeblood of others who do produce. Whether it's international banking, whether it's living off interest, whether it's, yes, international slave trafficking. I invited the founder and head of Operation Underground Railroad to join us tonight. You see, we're busy working on a gala, fundraising gala, on July 19th. One of the safe houses of individuals rescued from the underground slavery, human trafficking slavery trade. need funding, and we don't want government handouts. We don't want Mark Zuckerberg billions and George Soros billions. No. We need to be independent in funding, and so we're trying to raise money. This Sarah's Home is a safe house and a Christian-based school to get these young girls. I mean, they've been sexual slaves, sex trafficking since their early teen years, if you can believe that. And talk about whistleblowing. Many of these children begin being traded as early as 18 months of age. Yeah, can you imagine that? 18-month-old child? To these miscreants, you see, who think they're gods, who think they're above everybody else, and every part of the human herd below them are simply goyim or human cattle. It's perfectly okay to have sex with a little girl or even a little boy before the age of 3 years old, and they're in demand. Folks, it's an absolute reality that's the sickest of all the illnesses that you can imagine. Operation Underground Railroad, check it out. Go to Operation Underground Railroad, watch their latest series of videos. There's a full 2-hour documentary they did. It's very, very professional, very well done. You know, they're headquartered here in Utah. Utah Attorney General just did a recent sting, arrested 40 individuals in human trafficking here in Utah, and it was amazing how many members were high-level Mormons. See, and it's not just Mormons, it's other people who claim to be Christian. You see, Zionism is putting Israel first. These people claim to be Christian, but they don't have a clue that it's Gog and Magog who is modern-day Israel. You've got to understand who the enemy is, or you'll never be able to make a difference. Plain and simple. So, the Zuckerberg dossier. I want to just go back and hit the highlights of this. Again, you go to the website, American Intelligence Media, AIM, AIM for Truth, AIM #4 truth.org. Click on, it's kind of fun. Do the glass bead game. That's kind of interesting. I did that earlier on before the show. Kind of fun. The website, you just click on Facebook Insider Confesses All. Posted yesterday, June 13th at 6:37 p.m. It's a brand new posting. Again, thank you, Mr. O, for a shout out for playing that. Thank you so much for putting that on. And Dom, again, another Silicon Valley AI whistleblower in his own right. Yeah. Go to the website and you can just click on the Zuckerberg document. Quote, the following anonymous document claims to be written by a Facebook insider who is Mark Zuckerberg's lover from their freshman year at Harvard. So clearly, Mark is AC/DC, does girls as well as boys, young man. Quote, Mark's continuing indiscretions with his ongoing government contract keeps getting him in trouble to this day. Mark was supposed to simply be the fake boy genius of Larry Summers, Harvard's president. Social media project funded by DARPA, In-Q-Tel, CIA, and IBM. And the secretive international public private group called the Highlands Group, organized with the Department of Defense Office of Net Assessment. It was Summers and a group of government officials who fabricated, produced, and directed Mark throughout the entire fraudulent creation of the Facebook propaganda story at Harvard. Top it. These claims are explosive and allege that the entire fraudulent social media network called Facebook was always controlled by the government through the people who were at Harvard directing Mark, in other words, handling Mark. The anonymous author of the letter below, who we will call John, also points out why Facebook was created in the first place, how Mark was controlled by Eric Schmidt, James Bayer, Larry Summers, Sheryl Sandberg, and the evil intellectual property thief, Professor James Chandler. Admittedly, this Zuckerberg dossier has enough information in it to put Mark Zuckerberg behind bars, and therefore would not be touched by the mainstream media. According to the person who hand-delivered this letter to a member of the anonymous Patriots Conclave just a few days ago. American Intelligence Media, AIM, has been able to quickly verify that many of the claims insinuated in this, quote, Zuckerberg dossier are true, and this leads us to conclude that the document is authentic and exactly what it appears to be. The true authorship of this Zuckerberg dossier is evident to members of the conclave. But that supposition is speculation, and the conclave does not deal in speculation. Though, if one were to listen carefully to the admission of guilt by Sean Parker, a longtime executive of Facebook, which he has made repeatedly before the press, you will hear that Sean knew all about the true creation of the social media giant and its evil intents, and fingers the culprits. Therefore, it is not hard at all to figure out who may have written this expose on Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook evil. You can even see the true motivation for writing this tell-all about Zuckerberg at this time in history. Just as Facebook is facing all kinds of charges, including antitrust violations. Any person well-educated in the continuing scandals surrounding the creation of Facebook might have been able to piece together the many divergent claimants to the authorship of the source programming code used to make social media scalable, which was the universal problem of all the major tech companies of the time, including the NSA's LifeLog project. Somehow, genius Mark Zuckerberg solved the problem that no one else in the world could. Oh, yes. And Mark did it, quote, between a week and 2 weeks or so, while studying for finals and hosting a beer kegger for his friends. I like the little poster there. Facebook created the same day, exact same day, Pentagon kills a similar project called LifeLog. Coincidence? No. The author of this expose offers quite a different story, and for the first time tells of the involvement of high-level government players who made a fortune off of the skyrocketing overnight growth of Facebook stock on NASDAQ. The players mentioned by John, anonymous author, check out to be the people who made enormous amounts of money from their Facebook stock. These insider traders then took their Facebook winnings and started other social media companies that also coincidentally skyrocketed beyond most companies in history. Do you own any Facebook stock? Might be cash out time. Again, American intelligence media does not claim that the Zuckerberg dossier is 100% correct, but we can state with absolute confidence that the source is real. We also believe that there may be other installments of what we are calling now the Zuckerberg dossier. And this will probably not be the last time we hear from this source, as the trouble that Mark is having in the news keeps mounting. The most convincing aspect of this scorned lover tell-all is found in what the author outlines as Mark's true nature and what he believes is happening to Facebook right now in America. It was shocking to read these remarks, and we found them to be, after much reflection, probably true, and certainly not what we might have imagined to be the reality with the U.S. government's threat to act against Facebook. Also interesting is the major British intervention in Facebook through the former Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir Nick Clegg, taking over the face of Facebook, which Baron Richard Allen, another UK agent, I say MI5 operative, had failed to do properly. At this point, it does appear that Facebook seems to be dead in the water, unless the British Crown agents Clegg and Allen can save Mark from his horrible mismanagement. Again, we do not claim that this anonymous confession and indictment is true in all its parts, but certainly any intelligent reader will acknowledge that this version of Mark Zuckerberg's rise to fame and fortune is much more likely than the nonsensical stories we have been told by Mark since the early 2000s when he first popped up at Larry Summers' Harvard. Please circulate this wide and far. We need to turn the weapon that Zuckerberg is aiming at us, social media, back on him. There's a link in, again, Mark Zuckerman's diary, Mark Greenberg's diary, where he proclaims, "Let the hacking begin." This was also provided to us and is available in the link below as a PDF. We did not convert it to a Word file for obvious reasons. Also note that we formatted the author's letter below in a way that you can easily read it instead of how it was sent with tiny font and packed paragraphs. Let the hacking begin. Well, so yeah, what do you say, folks? Is there enough evidence here to send Greenberg to prison? Sure, there's enough evidence. Will it ever happen? Well, there's not been any arrests made yet in Pizzagate, has there? There's more than enough evidence there to put people in prison too, but it hasn't happened. This is the emails exchange. Zuckerberg in 2006, January 10th. Harvard face mash the process. Greenberg, aka Zuckerberg, writes, quote, this is blanked out, her name is a, quote, bitch. I need to think of something to take my mind off her. I need to think of something to occupy my mind. Easy enough. Now I just need an idea. I'm a little intoxicated and not going to lie. So what if it's not even 10 p.m. and it's a Tuesday night? What? The Kirkland Facebook is open on my computer desktop. And some of these people have pretty horrendous Facebook pics. I almost want to put some of these faces next to pictures of farm animals and have people vote on which is more attractive. It's not such a great idea and probably not even funny. But Billy comes up with the idea of comparing two people from the Facebook, not only sometimes putting a farm animal in there. Good call, Mr. Olson. I think he's onto something. Well, maybe that could be the name of Mr. Greenbook's lover. What do you think? Yeah, it's on. I'm not exactly sure how the farm animals are going to fit in this whole thing. You can't really ever be sure with farm animals. But I like the idea of comparing two people together. It gives the whole thing a very Turing feel, since people's ratings of the pictures will be more implicit than, say, choosing a number to represent each person's hotness, like they do on hotomot.com. What you see is yeah, he's this intoxicated psycho. Unfortunately, Harvard doesn't keep a public centralized Facebook, so I'm going to have to get all the images from the individual houses that people are in. And that means no freshman pictures, drats. And he writes on 12:58 p.m., let the hacking begin. First on the list is Kirkland. They keep everything open and allow indexes in their Apache configuration. So a little WGET magic is all that's necessary to download the entire Kirkland Facebook. Child's play. Next on the list is Elliott. They're also open but with no indexes in Apache. I can run an empty search and it turns all the images in the database in a single page. Then I can save the page and Mozilla will save all the things for me. Excellent. Moving right along. Lowell has some security. They require a username / password combo to access their Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and say that they don't have access to the main FOSS user database, etc., etc. So there you go. That's where the name Facebook began. Downloaded, hacked. Except there you are, folks. There's the smoking gun. Which is exactly what this insider said would happen and said that did happen. You see. Let's wrap this up. Let's go back where we started. Did you know 2 secretive Israeli companies bug the U.S. telecommunications grid for the NSA? This is, again, an article. Business Insider magazine, Michael B. Kelly, June 7th, 2013. And as you do your own research and homework in this, folks, you find that nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse. This was 2013 when this article was written. And you see how Zuckerberg began and Facebook began by criminal activity, hacking into intellectual property database. You see Greenberg and the Israelis, they're the same tribe. In this article, you get the list of the daisy chain, if you will, of the NSA. This is a great resource. It really is a really nice. You can see the chain of events, the links in the dots that are connected. In November 2001, again, just a few months after September 11th, in November 2001, the National Security Agency was allowed to begin to illegally intercept Americans' phone calls and emails without warrants or any suspicion of wrongdoing. This is November 2001. In 2008, Congress amended the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, rubber stamping this warrantless wiretapping program and giving the NSA power to conduct dragnet surveillance of all Americans' international communications. Now, this all goes through Israel. Flat out follow it, folks. Now you know why Facebook was needed. You see, you have all of the intelligence coming out, every communication, everything being in a dragnet. Now you can have computers manipulate public opinion. You see how the timing is? 2001, Zuckerberg comes in and his handlers at Harvard, 2006, and then 2008. Whistleblower, NSA insider whistleblower Bill Binney, I should say, said this one thing, quote, this is exactly what the founding fathers never wanted. And in fact, put the Bill of Rights together to protect against. You see where the problem is? You have Sprint, you have T-Mobile, you have AT&T, you have Verizon, you have all the landline mobile companies, all of it, all cellular phones, all wired through these two companies into Israel. And we're worried about Russian meddling? Come on, give me a break. This was 2013, folks. Here's what this is the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, actually put this out. Get this. Every day, the NSA through the Tel Aviv, the two secret companies, every day, the NSA intercepts and stores 1.7 billion emails, phone calls, text messages, and all other electronic communications. That's the equivalent of 138 million 400-page books every single 24 hours. You still don't think it's a problem, folks? Do you realize the reality? All Americans' private data goes into the NSA's data collection center. The NSA has dozens of facilities around the world. The new NSA data center in Utah alone is 5.7 times the size of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. The NSA has many employees, has as many employees as the CIA and the FBI combined, folks. Folks, listen to this. Follow this website I just said, the American Intelligence Media, AIM. Please send this out far and wide. Thanks for listening tonight. We need to take back America, and we got to do it by education, understanding. Don't be gullible. Stay off of Facebook. Stay off social media. That's the message tonight. Thank you for listening. Be well. Be safe. We'll follow this up next week as well. This is the story behind the story. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.